Join us Friday, March 28th for our 150th episode live at 8 p.m. Eastern on our YouTube channel. We have lots of things planned, including the return of Nightwing Year One co-author Scott Beatty. Mark your calendars and we'll see you then.
Hey everybody, welcome back to We Are the Batman. I'm Mike.
And this is Matthew.
So, as we know, recently, tragically, we lost the great Gene Hackman and his wife due to just a multitude of unfortunate circumstances that happened. It's a heartbreaking thing that, we won't delve into, but obviously a true acting legend who, through no small part, plays a big role in the history of DC and film. Mr. Gene Hackman, in his role of Lex Luthor in the Chris Reeve Superman films, for better or worse. Before we get into our full discussion, because we haven't talked about it yet, just share a little bit of love for Gene Hackman and his career. Matt, why don't we start with you, where you first maybe remember seeing him, some of your favorite roles of his?
I mean, the first time I would have saw him was probably in Superman. Take it or leave it, I'm old enough to have seen it in the theater. But I think the first time I was kind of aware of him, oh my gosh. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of the movie. It was like him and his daughter were both lawyers. And it was like, oh my gosh, now I feel
talking. I'm going to look it up. I don't know.
I know it's
at all.
I think Maria San Giacomo plays his daughter. Is that what it is?
Keep talking.
But it was like this really cool thing. I think was I knew who he was from Superman, but I don't think I knew him beyond that.
Okay.
And then of course, like you see him in what's it called? See, now I'm trying to think of it.
Was it Class Action? Was that the movie you were talking about?
Class Action.
Okay, I vaguely remember this movie. I don't think I've ever actually seen it. Yeah. But the poster looks familiar.
He was like he's one of those actors that I think was so natural. He could just do anything. And like I remember there was a scene in that movie where he's like kind of this smarmy lawyer. And like he's out with his boss and they're talking about the case because his daughter is basically the prosecutor and he's a defendant or vice versa, something like that. And they're talking about like, hey, she's going to do this. We may have to do that. And he's like, well, I can do this, but if I ever hear you talk bad about my daughter again, they won't be able to identify you with dental records. And the dude's just like, oh, and like just the way he said it, and just like, yeah, like he's a lawyer. He ain't a piece of crap, but dude, I've loved him like that. Like I liked him. Dude, the Birdcage.
Okay, I'm glad you brought it up too, because that was going to be. The Birdcage is already one of my favorite movies, bar none. But like when you said like Gene Hackman will just do anything, like would do just about anything, like not from a Nick Cage level, but like whether it's something like French Connection, which is such a serious movie, or Lex Luthor, which was at its time like very hokey, campy, but true to its source material comic book movie, or like in the Birdcage, where it's just a completely off the wall comedy based on, I'm blanking on the play now.
It's the same. It's called The Birdcage, but it's French.
Yeah, the French word, but just that is one of my absolute favorite movies with a bullet. Like, yeah. Robin Williams, Nathan Lane, Gene Hackman, Diane Wiest, Hank Azaria, like everybody in that movie is just crushing it, man.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, and he's just been in a ton of stuff. Like The Replacements. Why was he so good in The Replacements?
Oh, I was going to bring that one up too, dude. The Replacements does not get talked about enough as a movie, and Gene Hackman is like, here's why I love Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman can be funny.
Yes.
But he is the best at a comedy when he's playing the straight man, where he's the one that all the crazy things are happening to, and the Replacements and the Birdcage are both prime examples of how good at that Gene Hackman really is. Because in the Replacements, as him of the coach of just the best, worst football team in America, and in the Birdcage as just the worst politician ever thrown into his absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's just
so
good.
The other one that always sticks out to me, just because I really liked, he's only in it for a little bit, is he played Wyatt Earp's dad in that Wyatt Earp Kevin Costner movie.
I never saw it.
It's the more historically accurate, thus boring version of Wyatt Earp.
Right. Yeah.
Had Tombstone not exist, it probably would have been okay.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, that's Tombstone came first. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like it's like when they did the TV movie version of The Shining that was truer to the book. And it's like, the first movie was better. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, it rocked. But he just had this really cool speech and really cool like things he did. But yeah, he's just, there's not a film I can think of that he was bad in. Yeah. Always great, always intense. And then when he had to be funny, always funny.
Well, like the Royal Tenenbaums, I mean, one of the last ones he did, that's, one of those, Wes Anderson, art pieces that, I mean, I think that's one of the ones that, if not the one that like catapulted Wes Anderson into the forefront. And Gene Hackman is such a huge part of that. To your point, like he's a guy who, like, he'd been acting since the I want to say the 60s.
I mean, yeah, he goes back
because he was 90 something when he passed. But like, going back to, I remember, because I mean, the first thing I saw him in was Superman, obviously. And he was Lex Luthor for me, like, because that was my touchstone for him. So he was always going to be Lex Luthor, even, but through that is what got me to watch other things. Like I watched The Replacements in part because it was like, oh, Lex Luthor is in this. Like I watched The Birdcage mostly because of Robin Williams, but also it's like I even like Welcome to Mooseport. Is that movie good? No, but he and Ray Romano are at least like trying in that movie. There's not much to work with, but they're funny enough with each other. I remember seeing the Poseidon Adventure as a kid on, cut for TV, but like stuff like that, where he just, no matter how big or small role, my God, Young Frankenstein for one scene, he's in there as the blind guy. And it's so funny how much he would just commit to that. And I wanted to bring up just this one story. It's from the documentary about Chris Reeve, where Chris Reeve was in a talk show talking about making Superman, and he was like, yeah, I remember going and knocking on Gene Hackman's trailer and asking if he wanted to run lines to make sure we got the scene ready. And Gene was like, you're taking this seriously? Because it was Superman. Nobody gave a shit, So like, it was an interesting way to be like, it was from that like you kind of see where like, it's almost like, because Gene Hackman gives a shit as Lex Luthor, but it almost makes you wonder, is it like, did he start to give a shit more because of Chris Reeve? And I think that speaks a lot to the kind of actor that Gene Hackman was, to where it was like, even if it was something maybe he wasn't invested in, seeing his, I think he was able to play well enough off of his other actors to where even if maybe he wasn't invested, he could get invested enough for them.
Yeah. And then look, the one movie that I will say, in my opinion, that sticks out like a sore thumb in his filmography, where I'm like, there's zero reason for you to be in this movie, but for some reason you decided I'll do it, was Quick and the Dead. Like,
I like that movie.
I do. I love that movie, but it is the most Sam Raimi cheese Western thing.
Oh, 1,000%. I think that's partially why I like it. I don't know. Maybe he just likes Westerns.
I don't know, but every time I watch that movie, I'm like, why are you in this?
It is a different kind of bad guy for him. Well, you know what I mean?
Just because there's nobody. I mean, now those people are people, but besides Sharon Stone, there's nobody in that movie. Sam Raimi wasn't exactly a big director, so it's just one of those weird. Like, you must have just read this and been like, "Sure, let's do this. I can have fun with this," because he's fantastic in it, and I like the movie. It just kind of cracks me up.
Yeah, I'm trying to think because who's in that? I'm looking at the cast.
Leonardo DiCaprio,
Crowe's in that. DiCaprio's in that.
Oh
my God, I forgot Keith David's in this. Keith David. Tobin Bell is in this thing. I haven't seen it in years. I like that movie. I remember Gary Sinise being in it.
Gary Sinise,
Bruce
Lance
Campbell's
Henriksen.
in it, of course. But I like that movie. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to yuck your yum. It's just more of like, I don't know, man. I think that movie's pretty good.
No, I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying it's all the cheese, and I can't believe he did.
Yeah, I don't know. Gene Hackman strikes me as the kind of guy who was probably just into Westerns, and it was just kind of like, yeah, I'll be a bad guy in a Western. Why not? But look, after years and years of just incredible performances, it's an absolute shame and a tragedy the way that his life ended. But we choose instead to think about how his life was lived. And it was spent giving us decades of films to go back and watch, whether it's Hoosiers, whether it's Superman, whether it's The Quick and the Dead, whether it's The Birdcage, whether it's The Replacements, French Connection, the list goes on. You go watch Welcome to Mooseport. I'm sure Ray Romano would love some residuals. Whatever it is, thank you to Gene Hackman and rest in peace to him and his wife and to their dog as well. Not really a great way to transition to anything from that. So we'll just remind you guys that our 150th episode is coming up on Friday, March 28th at 8 p.m. Join us for a live Q&A, an absolute DC catch-up and review, a bonus reaction to something we're not going to say what it is, and joined once again by Nightwing co-author Scott Beatty. As always, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel so you get this podcast as soon as you can. Follow us on our social media at WTB Pod. We're talking about Lex Luthor today.
Yes.
Why it's part of the reason is why we were waiting to talk about everything with Gene Hackman. But also because, it just so happened that today on social media, there were some videos posted from like DC and Superman and all that about like, you're not ready. Some of the extent of like, you're not ready for Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. And they showed the shot of him from the trailer again. And then they announced that then today also was announced that Superman Day is coming on April 18th, and the logo for that was revealed. So we're thinking there's probably a trailer coming somewhere in the next few weeks, if not on April 18th. So,
as I said, there was something else dropping that day, so I'm assuming that's what it is.
Well, they didn't say that. The news article that said that was posting that with like a maybe.
Gotcha.
It makes sense. Since that is the anniversary of Superman's creation. So with that, plus Lex Luthor, plus this Nicholas Hoult thing, and like in all the conversations we've been having about Lois Lane, David Corenswet, haven't spent a lot of time talking about Lex Luthor. So Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit about who Lex Luthor is while I rest my voice for a sec.
Lex Luthor, depending on the era of DC you look at, pre-crisis, which is early 80s and before, he is a mad scientist, thus the weird interpretation in the Superman movies. And then it's not until the mid-80s, late 80s, post-crisis, that he becomes more the businessman. That's kind of a toss-up. Some people say that was John Byrne's idea. Some people say it was Marv Wolfman's idea.
I've always heard John Byrne.
So. Yeah. The point is that he changes to this kind of businessman archetype. And I think what kind of makes it, I don't want to say more interesting, but the different dynamic of somebody who is a businessman and that powerful, it's going to be harder to put them in jail. It's going to be harder to make them pay for their crimes. If you're a mad scientist, you're like, look at the green outfit he wears. We know he's a mad scientist, put him in jail.
Right.
But if you got a businessman who people would love, a la some recent things that are happening right now, it's going to be hard for anything to happen to him as far as we kind of see.
Like, look, elephant in the room. We'll get it out of the way here. Over the years, we've said as much on this show. I've said as much on this show. Lex Luthor's characterization has been off compared to either Donald Trump or Jeff Bezos. Bezos mostly in appearance. Life mimicking art, art mimicking life. Who's to say? It is what it is. There, we've put it out there in the world, in the universe.
Yeah,
we get it. We will try not to bring it up. It's probably going to come up again. We'll try not to harp on it. Moving forward.
Yeah. So that is who he is. And he's the main foil of Superman. He's kind of one of these guys who, you know, unless he has that green kryptonite powered armored suit, he's not a physical foil for Superman. He's going to come up with plans. He's got the things he's trying to do. He's going to try to thwart Superman through other means by either recruiting other villains, other heroes, making Superman look bad. It's just like this guy is so narcissistic, he can't stand the idea of an alien taking the limelight from him. So he's just kind of made it his, you know, kind of goal in life to kill, make look bad Superman for all the weird reasons that have nothing to do with anything besides he's a villain.
Because Lex Luthor's always been able to play on people's, play their morals against their greed. You know what I mean? Because, you know, inherently, you know, Lex is the kind of person who believes inherently everybody has some amount of amorality inside of them. And Superman is the first person he's come across who he can't buy out. He can't, you know, buy out. He can't pay off, and he can't threaten. He has no cards to play. So it's very much an, you know, so the idea of Lex Luthor being an allegory for, you know, that relationship between him and Superman being the idea of somebody who's never had to face a threat before suddenly facing a threat. There is that comparison to, like, you know, when 9/11 happened in the US, you know, it was, you know, being attacked on your own soil. There's always, you can draw all kinds of parallels between Lex Luthor and so many things in real life. So he's an interesting villain in that way because there's so many things you can do with him. And yet I feel like we tend to fall back into some of the same stuff over and over again with him.
Well, and he's also one of those, this is going to be a weird comparison. He's also one of those characters that's kind of like Batman, in my opinion. We need time with him to see how cool he is when he interacts with other heroes. We've never, well, that we want to admit, rarely gotten the Bruce Wayne Lex Luthor interaction.
Yeah.
The Batman Lex Luthor talking stuff. Like, I think that seeing him interact with more heroes and or even just having more of these conversations between him and Superman where you're 5-10 years into the situation and he's just like, I still hate you. And this is what I'm going to try and do to take you down. And you can't prove any of it. So have fun defending yourself, you know?
Yeah, to your point. Yeah. Like, Lex Luthor, I think, works best. This is how I've always felt. I think Lex Luthor always works best as a secondary villain.
Well,
he's the one pulling the strings from behind the curtains, but never actually like really goes away. He's just always kind of there. And this has always been my problem with Lex Luthor in general, in the way he's been used in film, is because he's usually the main villain. You know, I understand, like in Superman 2, there's Zod and everybody, and you know, we don't need to talk about anything after that. But like, whenever it's just Lex as the villain, pretty much once Superman is face to face with Lex, story's over.
Yeah.
And there's only so many different ways you can, you know, put up some kind of barrier obstacle between the two of them before you have to start making it about other characters.
Yes.
So I'm with James Gunn when he says like the villain of Superman is going to be Lex Luthor. Okay. Show me what you got then. Because I mean, obviously we see Superman fighting other things in the trailer, but if Lex is the main antagonist of this movie, I need to see him be something more than just a guy with machinations. Because Thanos was a guy with machinations.
Well, and I think too, like, if you really think about live action versions of him, film wise,
yeah,
Gene Hackman's the only one that got to do it more than one movie.
Yes,
so
which again is kind of
time.
Yeah, is to your point is like we've only ever got him in a one and done. Like Kevin Spacey. Say what you will about Kevin Spacey, great performance, but it's a one and done. It's a one and done kind of movie, and the movie itself is not good
at all.
And then Jesse Eisenberg, we've talked about this. Go back and listen to our BVS talk. Go back. Yeah, we both have mixed feelings about it. Suffice to say. So, yeah. Now in television, it's been, I think, much better. Both animation and I dare say live action.
Well, we got a lot of time with it. Look, I wasn't the biggest fan of the dude who was Lex Luthor in the Lois and Clark's New Adventures of Superman. But I also think like
I bought him as like the sleazy playboy side of Lex. I didn't buy him as the criminal mastermind side of Lex. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. It was an interesting ish love triangle there for a while, but it was just like, I don't understand what's happening.
When he's throwing on the charisma and trying to get with Terry Hatcher, like, yeah, no, that I believe. And it's like he's good at selling slime ball.
Yeah.
I didn't buy him as the Superman hating, you know, running the shadow organization from behind the scenes kind of thing. Now I will say, in the scenes that I have not watched the whole thing, but in the scenes from Crisis on Infinite Earths that I did see from the Arrowverse, John Cryer as Lex Luthor,
it was interesting.
He was good.
That's one of those things. Like if you ever said before that was going to be, I'm like,
I remember when that casting was announced, and it was I had already jumped ship on the Arrowverse at that point. But when they said John Cryer from 2.5 Men, and at that point I was working at a Fox affiliate airing 2.5 Men repeat, so like that's fresh in my head. And I'm like, I'm watching the repeats at work, going, Lex Luthor, huh? All right. Hey. But then I saw the scene with him and Tom Welling, and I'm like, and I'm just like, okay, I get it. Yeah, no, I get it. Yep.
You have to be kidding me.
Yeah, no, that's a great scene. That scene rocks. That scene's so good. So
he just has the kryptonite. I don't miss these conversations.
Nope. So and then even obviously Clancy Brown animated. Nothing else needs to be said.
Clancy Brown in anything.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest.
And there was another, and again, we haven't watched Superman and Lois, so I know another actor played him on that show. And from what I understand, was very well received. I, again, haven't seen it, so I can't comment on it.
Yeah.
But,
and we can't skip the guy, the man, Michael Rosenbaum.
Yeah.
Like,
if there's any reason to watch Smallville.
Oh man.
If there's any reason. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to watch Smallville. But if there's one, it's Michael Rosenbaum as Lex Luthor, hands down.
Yeah,
it's so good.
It's a weird storyline because I think that is really like pre-crisis stuff of that Superman. Because I think memory serves, pre-crisis Superman causes the explosion in the lab that makes Lex Luthor bald. So
I don't remember. You're barking up the wrong tree with that one.
Yeah, it's pre-crisis. So to have like them be friends, because I think that series up until about the 3rd season pushed whether it could be canon, and then the 4th season they were like, nah, we're just going to make it our own thing.
Yeah.
But no, I think that he does a good job until it gets a little, like, 5th season gets a little weird, but I don't want to get into that.
This is the late 90s, early 2000s. This show is still very much a victim of, the old TV model, 20 plus episodes, 40 plus minutes a piece. And then you just air it until the sponsors stop paying for it. Look how long The Flash was on the air, for crying out loud.
Dude, Smallville was 10
rules
seasons.
for the first few seasons.
Yeah. But I mean, he, like, the weirdest thing about that show is when he's gone, he is missed.
Yeah.
Like, once look, Justin Hartley is great as Green Arrow.
Yeah.
But he's just, the dynamic of that show is completely different. And he is so good at that. And I really feel like I've seen him in other stuff and I've loved him in other stuff. Other stuff I've also seen him like, bro. But
yeah, don't watch oh God, what's the one with Jared Leto? Oh, and they're in college.
Sorority Boys?
No, it's a horror movie.
I have no idea.
Robert Englund's in it. Oh my God, I'm blanking on it. Son of a bitch. Ignore me. Anyway, moving on. Yeah,
but I think that there's been so many interesting versions of him, and I think that I'm dying for them to be. I'm trying to think about how to say this. The fact that no one has done it better than Rosenbaum.
Urban legend.
That
was the movie. Also, by the way, Rosenbaum, also The Flash.
Yes, in the cartoon.
And in one episode, The Flash as Lex Luthor. God, I love that episode so much.
Yeah. At least I could figure out who the Flash is.
I have no idea who this is. If you guys, anyone
great brain robbery.
I'm assuming anyone listening to this show or watching the show knows what episode of Justice League we're talking about.
And if you don't, go watch it because it's hilarious. Aren't you going to wash your hands? No, because I'm evil.
That's so good.
But I think, like, that's a performance I would like to see him come back to as a adult.
Yeah.
And I say that in quotes of people who aren't watching because, like, he does play a younger 20s who is not fully the villain, fully Lex Luthor. So it would be really cool to see, like,
he's morally what's the word I'm looking for? Compromised.
Yeah. Well, because like, look, this is one of those things in my mind. Like, I mean, I'm going to go way off left field here for a second. James Gunn did say way back when that they would do Elseworlds things.
Yeah.
Give me a Smallville season 15 live action, hour and a half little movie on WB. Let Tom Welling finally be freaking Superman. Have Michael Rosenbaum come back and be Lex Luthor, and just give me an, I don't know how inexpensive it can be to. I mean, it must be inexpensive.
Animated.
They made a whole show. Well, look, no, I mean, they even made if Superman and Lois is a TV show and they could make him fly, it can't be that expensive nowadays to do that as a special effect. So do like I
just meant for more of a, like, hey, if you guys want to come, like, just knock this thing out, like, with a dope script, you know what I mean? With Elseworld stuff, I think the beauty of animation is you can do a lot of Elseworld stuff.
And I think they were trying to do what they were, because they talk about on Michael Rosenbaum podcast, is Tom Welling and Michael Rosenbaum were trying to pitch, like, let's do an animated season 11 of Smallville, and they turned it down because they stopped talking about it. But I mean, my point more is, like, it would be interesting to see that. So let Tom Welling actually be Superman. Let him be the fully formed Lex Luthor. Let's see them be that. Bring everybody back. Erica Durance can be Lois Lane. She was great as Lois Lane.
Yes, she was. Let's see his final mission as Superman before he decides time to give up the powers and go just be a family with Lois and the farm.
But no, I think
back to Lex Luthor.
But I think Lex Luthor is the other key to this DCU that we need to lock down. Mm-hmm. Like, if you really think about phase 1 of the MCU, Loki is the through line.
Yes.
He's in a lot of the after credit scenes. He's the villain of, like, 2 of the films. Like,
literally, he's the villain of Thor, shows up in the post-credit scene as still being out there. And then we get Captain America, and then we get the Avengers, and he's back.
Yeah. So I think if you could set him up as not only the villain in this, if he somehow does stuff to cause the Supergirl situation, if you see him kind of like he forms the Legion of Doom in some weird way.
I think that's more because we obviously know that was from the Joss Whedon version of Justice League. That's what that Luthor was setting up with Deathstroke. It's not this is a world this DCU is lived in. Other villains exist, lots of other heroes exist. It's not out of the realm of possibility of this Lex Luthor being evil Nick Fury for the DCU.
Well, look, this is something that even the MCU hasn't done yet. A villain, a super team villain, a villain super team. Mm-hmm. There still has not been a villain team.
Nope.
Ever. MCU is like 40 films in and TV shows. We have not gotten a villain. How did we have Loki?
I mean, yeah, the Thunderbolts is going to be the closest thing we get.
I mean,
yeah, I said the closest thing we're going to get. I didn't say counted.
Yeah, look, you had Loki. The fact that he didn't go get everybody else, and we had the Avengers. The fact that we're about to go into the 5th Avengers movie, and there hasn't been a super team to fight. The best we've gotten is Civil War.
I think that's what they were originally setting up for with Kang Dyna, and I think that's what we're going to kind of pivot towards with Doomsday a little bit. We'll see.
But it would be cool to see Lex Luthor finally do that. Finally create a team, because I was like that one episode of Justice League where he puts together what's it?
Yeah.
Tigra and
all the Ultra Humanites. Basically like a bunch of like
Clayface.
Oh my God. It wasn't even D-list villains. It was like who do we got? Who's left? I think Midnight. What's the guy with the top hat and the cane? It was like a bunch of I think
Dr. Shade, Star Sapphire. Yeah,
I think Clayface was the most well-known villain on that team, honestly, other than Lex Luthor.
Well, and I think that would be something neat to see. How do you take down Superman or the Justice League? Like, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't seem like the Justice League quite exists yet.
No,
but there's a super team there. I mean, the
Terrifics,
what we're calling the Terrifics.
The Lantern Corps exists.
A Lantern Corps exists. I don't know if the Justice Society is going to be something that existed beforehand.
I don't know. But I'm really looking forward to. I'm looking forward to being interested in Lex Luthor as a villain again. Because to me he is not an interesting villain at all. Like I understand he is like he is a constant. This isn't like Clayface. This isn't a villain we can ignore. Like, we have to have Lex Luthor. Like, I understand that completely. And I'm not caught up on Absolute Superman yet, so I'm wondering when he's going to be introduced. But yeah, I'm looking forward to James Gunn giving me a Lex Luthor that, I don't know, feels like I believe he would be around, because like so far the Lex Luthors we've had, I've been like, the federal government would shut these guys down immediately. So I need to find. I want a Lex Luthor that I can believe he's getting away with all this shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. And just because we haven't had longevity with Lex Luthor in films, I haven't gotten that. And in comics, a lot of times Lex Luthor is just kind of a recyclable character, especially for Superman comics, where it's just like, who's behind this bad thing that's happening? $10 says it was Lex Luthor.
Yeah, it's going to be Lex. We're just not going to be able to pin it on him.
How many issues into this run are we going to find out Lex was behind this? Is what a lot of times happens. So the fact he hasn't shown up yet in Absolute Superman is actually kind of refreshing, to be honest with you.
I mean, they've got a lot going on as it is. I mean, it seems. Are you caught up? How far ahead? Where are you in the series?
I'm up to I picked up issue 5 today. I have not had a chance to read it yet. I picked it up right before I got home.
So you've read 4, which really establishes like Peacemaker is.
Yeah, I was not expecting Absolute Superman to also be a Peacemaker origin in a way. And I'm not mad about it either.
Makes sense.
Man,
I like it.
I really do. And
Still my favorite, dude.
I know it is. We always want to know what you guys are like. What are your thoughts on Lex Luthor? How do you feel about this chrome dome creep hanging out here this entire episode? I wonder how many people are just genuinely uncomfortable. I know, right? That is what you subscribe to this show for, folks. That is why. If that doesn't get you, nothing will at this point. Make sure you subscribe. Follow us on all the social medias at WATBPod. You can find me on social media at Mr. Mike Shea.
You can find me at the Hustle Man across all social media.
That is going to do it for this episode. We're the Batman. We'll see you guys again next time. Same bad time, same bad podcast channel.
Bye-bye.